Harry Houdini is perhaps the most famous magician and escape artist of all time. His name is legendary, and people are still fascinated by his life and career. So it's no surprise that DC Comics writers Howard Chaykin and John Francis Moore decided to come up with a story about Houdini and Batman. Published in 1993, Batman Houdini: The Devil's Workshop is a tale set in the early 20th century, the time when Houdini was in his prime. This Elseworld story was illustrated by Mark Chiarello, and it is the perfect graphic novel for our second Halloween special of 2021. The tale begins on the winter of 1907, when a pale, horrific man with a gruesome smile starts abducting children at night in the area of Gotham known as the Devil's Workshop. Around this time, Harry Houdini has arrived to Gotham, attracting the attention of all the media, especially from photographer Vicky Vale. When he learns of the problems at Devil's Workshop, Houdini decides to help. As this happens, Bruce Wayne returns to Gotham on the railroad when, out of nowhere, a stagecoach gets stuck on the tracks and the driver flees, taking a child from the wagon of the coach, which is full of kidnapped children. In the commotion, the Batman suddenly appears and starts chasing the lunatic to stop him. The chase leads them to the underground subway system under construction, with the police and their hounds just behind them. Batman confronts the madman, but the dogs caught up to them and they attack the wrong man. The grinning lunatic escapes but leaves the kid behind. Batman barely escapes from the dogs and the police eventually rescue the girl. The next day, the press is putting the blame on Batman, with Vicky Vale promoting these allegations against him. Soon, Bruce gets to know Miss Vale and also the renowned magician, Houdini, in a meeting of very important people. They talk about Batman and Houdini tells them that he is determined to expose the creature as a fraud. As they talk, they are interrupted by Baron Montenegro, a European nobleman who owns a meat factory in Gotham. The Baron is in fact the master of the madman who kidnaps children, the man called Mr. Schadenfreude, which is a German word that means joy or happiness from the pain of others. Batman soon starts looking for Mad Jack Schadenfreude, as they call him in the streets, but he only comes across Houdini, who wants to uncover Batman and expose him to the world. As Batman and Houdini fight on the rooftop of the Baron's meat factory, the mad albino sets a bomb to destroy the place, following his master's orders. When the bomb goes off, Batman and Houdini join forces to save the people from the burning place. As they become allies and start talking, Houdini recognizes Batman's voice and deduces his identity. Days later, Bruce Wayne and Vicky Vale attend the opera, where they meet Leonora Reinhardt, an actress who is also a friend of the Baron and who looks unnaturally young for her age. Leonora and the Baron invite Bruce and Vicky to a seance they have prepared, one that Houdini will also attend in order to debunk as a fraud. Bruce, Vicky and Houdini go to the seance and they are greeted by both Leonora and the Baron. When the seance begins, Bruce and Houdini remain skeptical of the whole charade, until each of them see the spirits of their dead mothers talking to them from beyond the grave. Both men decide to take a break from the experience, and while they are outside, they talk about their previous encounter. Bruce admits that he is Batman and tells Houdini that he can join him in the hunt to stop Schadenfreude. Unknown to them, the Baron has set his eyes on Vicky Vale as his next victim. That night, Batman and Houdini set out to capture Schadenfreude, and they track him down to an abandoned carpentry. Houdini's lock-picking abilities allow them to break inside, where they find mostly darkness. However, they soon hear voices coming from the basement, and when they go down, they witness a horrible scene. The pale madman in the middle of the room, his clothes stained with blood, and next to him, two children tied to toy horses with their hands behind their backs. Batman tries to stop him, but the madman escapes through a secret tunnel. The Batman blasts through the entrance with explosives and confronts the madman in his lair. The maniac makes fun of Batman because he is only pretending to be a creature of the night. The fight ends quickly as Schadenfreude falls into a pit and breaks his neck, dying from the fall. When Houdini enters the dark place, they finally realize the hidden horrors surrounding them. The bodies of the victims tied upside down, completely drained of life. The pain and frustration break Batman, but the evil madman has been defeated and the case is closed. Or so they think. A few days later, Houdini checks the recordings he did of the seance at Leonora's place, and he finds the most disturbing things. There are no images of the ghosts they saw that night, just like there are no images of the Baron or Leonora. Batman and Houdini decide to pay a visit to the Baron in his castle outside of the city, and in order to reach him faster, Batman prepares an untested flying machine. Inside the Baron's castle, he has trapped Vicky Vale and he is determined to make her his companion. As the Baron approaches her, Vicky stabs him with a knife in the chest in self-defense, but that doesn't work. The Baron is unharmed and this only makes him mad. Batman and Houdini land nearby the castle and they start climbing the tall, upstanding towers of the old building. Inside they find Leonora and the Baron getting ready to make Vicky Vale one of their own kind. Batman commands the Baron to release Vicky, but the Baron needs to drink her blood and he finally reveals himself as the true vampire he is. The heroes are overpowered by the supernatural creatures and they are chained in an underground train tunnel next to a bomb as the Baron escapes in the train, taking Vicky with him. After the explosion, Batman and Houdini are chained and buried under tons of rubble. It all seems lost, but thanks to Houdini's escaping abilities and Batman's gadgets, they make it outside just in time for Batman to reach the train. Houdini stays behind and he is attacked by Leonora, who jumps at him ready to strike. Meanwhile, Batman reaches the wagon where the Baron has taken Vicky, and he challenges the vampire. The supernatural strength of the Baron is too much for the Dark Knight, who is unable to fight back. However, when the Baron is distracted, Vicky Vale takes the opportunity and uses a sharp wooden stake to stab the Baron in the back right through his heart. The monster is weakened and Batman pushes him further into the stake, which pierces through his body, killing the undead monster. Bruce and Vicky come out of the train and they meet with Houdini, who managed to deal with Leonora using his own tricks. The story ends with the written words from the journal of Harry Houdini, in which he tells his first and only true experience with the undead and his only collaboration with someone who is just as legendary as himself. This is one of the most unique and well-written Elseworld stories. It combines two of the most iconic names in pop culture and puts them in two different kinds of horror narratives. The initial concept of a deranged lunatic kidnapping children fits perfectly within the slasher genre, which is very similar to Batman Gotham by Gaslight, another Elseworld story set in the 19th century. The idea of Schadenfreude as the Joker of this universe is unique and adds a really twisted angle to the character. However, just like in any good slasher story, the moment when the most likely villain is taken down is when the real horror begins. The second part of the story shifts towards a Gothic horror narrative, featuring supernatural elements, and it changes the scenario from a modern city to an old castle outside of the city limits. In other words, this book combines the real-world horrors of twisted minds and evil men doing horrible deeds with the supernatural horrors of vampires and the undead that walk among the living. And in my opinion, it's all perfect, because the Batman stories that dwell in horror elements are almost always excellent. Batman is a creature of the night, and no matter what era in time this is, that's when he's most effective. The other remarkable thing about the story is how much it emphasized the characterization of Houdini. In real life, Houdini was in fact notorious for debunking mystics who claimed they had supernatural powers, and this is something they play with in this story. There's also a reference to his friendship to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, who is of course a great inspiration for Batman as the world's greatest detective. And Houdini's brief time as an aviator is also referenced in this book, not to mention his escaping abilities. All in all, this is an interesting fictional version of Houdini, although they did have to make him smarter than Batman, just to contrast with the Dark Knight's physical abilities. In any case, Harry Houdini is a legendary man who passed away on the Halloween night of 1926. That has nothing to do with the story, but it's an interesting fact that I thought was worth mentioning in this, the second Halloween special. There is just one more story for this year's Halloween, so don't be afraid to tune in next time. As always, a special thanks to my patrons for sponsoring this video. Your help is truly appreciated. Remember that you can always follow me on Twitter at Salazar. Friends, thank you so much for watching, and always remember to look behind you.